the keynote speech by Professor Ayumi. So it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Ayumi. I briefly introduce to you. Ayumi, she's an urbanist and principal and representative director of Studio Han. She graduated from the Department of Design of Tokyo National University of Fine Arts and Music. She also studied architecture at Politecnico di Milano in Italy. And she got master degree on interdisciplinary information studies from the University of Tokyo. So her career is focusing on the relationship between contemporary urban space and changing human activities. She has been working beyond the boundary of specialty of design. Since around 1990, she has mainly been involved in the design of urban bridge, tunnels, and other infrastructure, as well as highway driving space and landscapes. She has been also developed experimental installation based on the topic of space of velocity from ecological, psychological point of view. She teaches at various universities, including Nagaoka Institute of Design, Toho Gakuen College of Arts, and University of Shiga, Kokushikan University, and also Hosei University. She was a professor at the Department of Integrated Design Engineering at Maebashi Institute of Technology. Professor Han has received many prizes, including Architectural Institute of Japan Prize for his design of Asaka Hamazaki Daiichi housing complex, and L'Oreal Award for Science and Art, and also Good Design Award. So she published many articles and chapter books. So please welcome Professor Han Ayumi.
I'm Ayumi Han, as Konos has introduced me, urbanist and design director working in the field of urban environment. Although I'm not a scholar in an academic discipline, but I have been pioneering my own design approach in the mobility field for many years, both practice and research. It's a great honor to me to be here at SBT today to give a keynote speech on sequence design. Thank you. So I start the recent project of sequence design. It's quite complicated to explain clearly the idea of sequence design. So I will show you first some concrete ideas and stuff. This is Hakase Tunnel, located in Fukushima Prefecture. You see the map. The right side is Pacific Ocean, and the left is Japan Sea. In the middle, among the mountain, there is a very small village called Showa village. So they waited for a long time to have their all year around facilities to reach to the city side. The colors line up here, all 30 colors that were actually used for the design pattern of the tiles on the walls of the tunnel, selected on the theme of color of the landscape in Showa village and Misato town. The starting and ending points of the tunnel. Yes, these two villages. Each color has a name. Yeah, respect from the nature color. And this is the entire tunnel design structure. The tunnel has 4,500 meters long, and each season, from winter to autumn, winter, spring, summer, and autumn, divided into early and late period. The color table for each section you see. This is the colors for winter, layout for winter time. White, silver, snow, and snowfall, the proceeding of the season. And this is spring section. You see yellowish colors of plants that sprout out in springtime. This is the summer, so you see the variety of deep green. And in the autumn, earlier period, trees whose leaves turn red or yellow, and the later period, it's head of rice harvest or golden field of rice. And in between the seasons, there is a warp sections, and the buffer sections are at the entrance of the tunnel. And this is kind of schematic of the driving car status. Optical flow of visual environment during car driving. These are 4 windows are of the car. Front window, this is towards the driving direction. The outflow, centrifugal expansion, and accompanies with the back window. This is inflow, centripetal construction. Yes. So, yeah, it is always like this. And side view of the windows, this is horizontal flow, just going to backwards. This is always, if you, this observer, the driver, goes towards the driving direction. These arrows show the direction and the force, speed. This is a basic idea of sequence design. The flow of speed. And this is a very special chance to show the recent Hakase tunnel. Just we took these movies a week ago in the site. Not yet opened. This is just for the research shooting. the movie was shortened a bit. This is the verb section. It shows kind of time proceeding, shrinked. And then into the winter section. Different tone of gray and shade of snow. Then the springtime, spring section has started with colorful, soft colors, and then the summer is more strong greens all over. You are among the forest. Then gradually turn to the autumn. Not yet. Still summer. Yes, we are in autumn section. So leaves are turning to yellowish and red and brown. So very colorful season here in the village. Then towards the big, vast field of rice, and then now ending the tunnel towards the exit. Okay. So, till now I introduce you my consideration about the movement. Art does not reproduce the visible, but makes visible. Paul Klee, 1961. As shown in the visual materials, I have been developing sequence design by using leading-edge technologies as they evolve. For example, my current process involves starting with a design study using a CG animation-based simulator, followed by experiment with test subject using a driving simulator, or actual vehicle measurements by OBD2 data, and concluding with verification by probe data of vehicles before and after implementation. Before I explain more about sequence design specifically, I want to share some thought about movement. To do this, I need to introduce the Japanese word Ido. Ido is the high-level category word like movement, and it has neutral connotation. However, Ido is more specific than movement in that it applies to instances where something starts in one place, moves along a path, and ends in another place. It's used in ways that are similar to trip, travel, journey, or migration, but unlike those words. Ido implies nothing about duration here. Here, I will use the hybrid word movement Ido when I want to indicate natural, neutrally movement from one place to another. For all animals, including humans, movement Ido is an essential part of living. Wild animals are known for their seasonal migrations, in which they sometimes cover vast distance in search of suitable habitat or food or breeding. And hunter-gatherers, humans, also depended on moving from one place to another for 7 million years. And through moving for survival, they spread their habitat to every corner of the earth. The shift towards settled life started only about 10,000 years ago with the rise of agriculture-based society. And of course, there are still nomadic peoples in steppe, desert, and polar region who depend on movement either for survival. Now, let's think about how contemporary humans survive in a city like Tokyo. Movement either is still a necessary part of daily activities. We do a lot of moving from our place of residence to predetermined destination and back again. And also, we might call this moving a commute, going shopping, or going to meet somebody. In essence, it calls all movement either. In addition to walking, we accomplish this movement through public transportation, cars, or bicycles. Some people, for example, those engaged in transportation and distribution industries, experience most of their day in a state of movement either. In today's society, movement either is rational and systematically designed, constructed, and managed all over the planet. The concentration of human population in cities and that occurred along the industrialization gives rise to commuters, who are then managed as just one more type of traffic volume. Perhaps because of some overlap in their origins, the field of information technology and transportation share an obsession with scale and speed. We can point to the immediacy of the internet and the pressure in shipping and transportation industries to get more people and things to faraway places faster. And in some societies, we have reached to the point where the time for movement is a kind of waste, and the point where there is no faster way to get to this destination, the remaining time cannot be reduced any further, and there is what I call a residue. Passive passengers, transported like cargo, are not engaged in their movement. They engaged in some other activities, such as playing games or readings, to kill their time to remain until their destination. In this context, drivers of cars, riders of motorcycles and bicycles hold special interest. They use their bodies and brains to control vehicles while moving at high speed. They are not passive passengers. They're not passive passengers transported like cargo. They are organisms actively engaged in their own movement either. Autonomous vehicles obviously create a different situation, and I will not consider them here. Let's think about action of human driving a car. The driver maintains visual focus on the forward roadway, makes full of use of cognitive and perceptual abilities to process the environment surrounding the road. And while in the flow of traffic, steadily gains mileage while avoiding danger by moving their limbs and at times entire body in response to changes that appear one after another as they move forward at high speed, like this. Under these conditions, a car that is being driven by human is not only a big vehicle, it's also maximum extension of the driver's physical capacity and minimum living space for protecting the body. There is a link here to what was demanded of early humans as they relied on movement for survival. When humans drive cars at high speeds, even if they are not aware of it, they must make full use of their perceptual capacities just as humans did when they were hunting in the Stone Age. Whether today or primitive times, the underlying principle is the same. A moment's carelessness or an operational error can be fatal. Whether we talking about hunter-gathering during times when movement either was done for survival or driving a car at high speed, the environment directly affects activity and supports its possibilities. In a country like Japan, surrounded by the sea, with steep mountains, rugged terrain, and few flatlands, road trace the varied topography of coastlines, riverbanks, valleys, and mountain passes. Other than being paved, they do not differ greatly from the route traveled by foot or horseback in the past. On the other hand, in areas with vast plains, such as can be found in the Americas and Eurasia, planners initially followed economic logic and made road completely straight. As a result, without exception, many accidents happened. The endless flat landscapes, abstract roads like geometrical line segments, were critically lacking in ever-changing environmental information that would afford the high-speed movement of human beings as organisms. Examination of the causes led the principle of highway design. Road designed from scratch using geometry must incorporate gradually changing crothoid curves, so-called, in order to offer persistent stimulation to the driver who must adjust speed and direction. Variation in the environment are necessary for humans to engage in movement with safety. In the United States today, when a serious accident occurs, the investigation includes examination of the plans for the road that became the accident site. This step is taken on the premise that roads are for humans, and therefore they must be designed with affordance for their movement either. But it's a big problem that this premise seems to be lacking in Japan, where most serious accidents are blamed entirely on drivers. form is the end, death. Form giving is life. Paul Klee, 1973. Now that we are done some thinking about movement Edo, let's consider the role and the role of sequence design. In an industrialized society, highway networks are infrastructure for the flow of things, and this flow is managed and measured in a way of maximize efficiency. Roads tasked with efficiency require engineering based on measurement of traffic flow and local topography. Strict construction standards regulate road width, speed limit, lighting, and so on. With just a road surface and sometimes a tube-like wall surface, the driving space feels like a space of geometry. From a designer's perspective, there seems to be little matter of form to work with. The road and wall surfaces are so homogeneous that there are few features offering clue for comparison, make it different from humans to perceive distance and speed while passing through. The result is impaired perception and drowsiness leading to accidents. The information that provided comes in the form of uncoordinated messages from signs and GPS devices. Roads are exceptionally specialized use of public space. It is a public mission of our time to rethink the design of the road as living spaces for driving humans, rather than as spaces that cause tension and loss of awareness. Yes, this spaces that cause tension and loss of awareness, calling death. However, from different perspectives, roads are part of the human habitat that is indispensable for contemporary everyday life. Sequence design is an approach for composing the time axis in vacant road space to bring it the transformation alive. It is perceived directly and experimentally as information embedded in the environment and as it being perceived. It elicits appropriate action. Highways are artificial traffic spaces that have been optimized for movement Edo, so they are a good example of application of sequence design. However, even cities being transformed by technology have many unexplored layers of emergent relationship which sequence design can be applied. But most of these layers currently exist outside of human awareness. In closing, I offer you a quotation from James J. Gibson, an ecological psychologist whose work has been the theoretical backbone of my design activities for 17 years. His work is so important to me, so that I consider myself a Gibsonian designer. From Gibson's the ecological approach to visual perception, published in 1979. I shall talk about changes, events, and sequences of events, but not about time as such. The flow of abstract, empty time, however, useful this concept may be to the physicist, has no reality for an animal. We perceive not time, but processes, changes, sequences, or so I shall assume. The human awareness of clock time, socialized time, is another matter. My talk today also drew significant inspiration from a 2011 book by anthropologist Tim Ingold titled Being Alive. To Ingold and to Gibson, I offer my utmost respect. Thank you for the half. And now I will show you the examples of sequence design. I did a lot of variation of the projects, and it's kind of digest version. I stop speaking, so please show the stage. This is Tokyo Bay, Trans-Tokyo Bay Highway. Just remain a plan draft. This simulation video, all handmade, with plexiglass and paper cut design patterns. (1993). This is an art installation held in Stuttgart at Shore Solitude. Visitor can experience the whole environment in a car. This is the remaster movies from the installation. This is also following the seasons. This was not also realized, but very colorful and with this music designed along the music score. This was also the installation project in Seoul, Korea, only for a month. The design pattern was Scotch tape. This is the other kind of sequence design on the road surface. They focused on speed, controlling speed. You can feel the acceleration, but the speed is constant, the same, 6 kilometers per hour. This route was consisted of 4 different long tunnels. On the Japan Sea coast. So you see the left side is sea. The right hand is mountains. This is sunset scenery. This is a steep mountain pass with curves, continuous curves. So in this case, the optical dot system, ODS, is kind of guide for driving. Yes, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Han Sensei. So we move to the question time. So anybody who has a question or comments? Please.
Hello, thank you for your talk. It was great to see. It was neat to see so many different designs. I was wondering if you could say a little more about if there is work on the difference of experience between drivers in these situations and passengers, other people in the car. We're talking about the aesthetics and the colors, design within the tunnels. Is there work to create a different environment for the passengers in the car who might have a different way of looking around? I think about how when I'm a driver on a normal route, say driving to work, and then one day I drive in with a colleague, suddenly I notice things that I don't normally notice on the way to work because I'm busy driving. And I wonder if you built that in.
Yeah, see this? Oh no. Focal point is there in the front view or in the center. Of course, driver should look at it, yeah? And these flow of environment, visual environment is not in the, how do you say, focused area, but side. Not necessary to watch it, just go through among the flow. That's the point. It's not verbal signs or this alarm or nothing, no meaning. It depends on you, passengers or the driver, what to feel. Okay?
Okay, yes, 1, 2, please.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the inspiring work. I was wondering, because you referred to cars, what about other means of transportation in such a context and this kind of a creation? Like, for example, trains. How could you just share with us a couple of words on this difference?
Yeah, as I explained a bit, well, it's a bit nasty to say the passengers, passive passengers, are moving in a cargo. Train is kind of room, cube. You can sit there and dance. You can dance or sing or reading book or play game. You can do anything you want. You are not engaged in moving yourself. This is the difference. The sequence design mainly for the drivers or riders or workers or the people who engage in their movement themselves.
All right. Okay, so.
Thank you very much. You quoted Tim Ingold. It just so happens that when the SPG meeting was held in Scotland a number of years ago, I don't remember the exact year, Tim Ingold was giving us a plenary talk, calling our attention to some of the same things that you did today. So we have a connection in this SPG meeting between you and Tim Ingold.
Ingold, who? Ingold,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Ingold, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched his book,
Yeah.
Being Alive, and I was very,
But I don't know the other person that you mentioned. Could you spell the name of you person that you consider yourself a a follower of, and you mentioned him first and then Tim Engel, but I didn't catch, could you spell the name of the person? You quoted?
James Gibson,
James
James J. Gibson. Gibson is an
Okay.
ecological psychologist.
Okay.
Yes, James
Thank you.
Gerald Gibson.
And then one last thing, could you say a little bit more about the distinction between that we don't experience time, we experience movement, ego.
Processes, yeah.
But is that the same as movement, ego? You distinguish between movement and movement, ego,
Yeah.
and time versus we don't experience time. I understand that. But
Time is very abstract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or space as well.
Yes.
Gibson mentioned the difference between the environment and the space. So time is also very abstract. So he thinks that he mentioned that we cannot catch the time, but we can perceive the changement or process or sequence or changes, whatever. But we are the animals who are moving around all the time, not fixed in the one position and seeing only one direction, like physicist experiment equipment or something.
Thank you.
Right. For other questions and comments? Yes. Okay. You first and second.
Thank you. So I just, I have this question because the images were so beautiful. It seems to me that if I were driving, I would be distracted by all of these beautiful images. So I wonder whether there are, any studies that have been done about whether there are more likely to be accidents or less likely to be accidents. Less, okay.
Yeah, because I showed tonal route with 4 different length tonals.
Right.
Yeah, there, from the beginning, there is no accident at all.
Okay.
How many years? Yeah, 10 years or something.
How about tunnels? Because again, that makes sense that people would be more attentive to but the tunnels again seem so distracting, at least, from an aesthetic point of view, so.
So as I told, the design patterns say nothing.
Right.
No signs, no messages, no verbal,
Right.
yeah, content. So just you can feel it here. No, it's not necessary to watch around. No, just you point in the center of the floor, and you feel, yeah, side.
As you go through.
Yeah, and around the center zone. So it's no anxious to be much interested.
Thank you. And Ross. Yes, he is.
So thank you very much. I actually had a very similar question. When watching the video, there was one of the installations which you said was never realized, and I found that to be quite stimulating. So I kind of had the same concern about safety and whether the concept of safety informed your designs, whether you sought to create kind of minimal installations which didn't overstimulate drivers or take their attention away from the road.
Yeah, you noticed a good point that this plan, a very colorful one, was redesigned for the one award, Art and Science Award. So at the beginning, that was much simple things. So it's true that was too much colors, and the buttons were also on the ceiling. Maybe it was a bit too much, but now, from now on, we don't use gas at all. So the air, the environment in the tunnel will be more clear, no? No inclination, so maybe it's possible to design in different way.
All right. Okay. So the last question is gentleman. Yes.
Hello. What you replied before about we don't perceive the movement and these questions, this kind of recalled me Bergson. As a matter of fact, I wanted to work on Bergson because his relationship to mobility and the fact that we don't perceive the time and intelligence is only able to grasp stability and so on. I found it a very rich material on the matter of mobility, but at some point I considered maybe it was too ambitious and I kind of dropped this idea. But is James Gibson or you, through your studies on this question of mobility, have you run into you said it's an expression of find something, some people that studied the correspondence with Bergson's philosophy, or is it a field that hasn't been too much developed yet?
Well, at the beginning, around 1992, I started alone. I started to work with civil engineering project to design a structure or the different things around the road, highways. And so highway have two sides, from the outside and inside. Speed space inside. The outside is a kind of landscape, artificial landscape. So from that point of view, I was very deeply interested in this speed space, yeah, which the traffic flow is there. But the drivers are humans, so this contrast are very big. And I thought, as I'm a designer, what can I do for that? And I started, and I don't remember, at a certain point I met Professor Sasaki from Tokyo University. He was one of the most famous ecological psychologists here in Japan, and all members of Gibsonian. I met them, and then I was very surprised that Gibson had all basic ideas and philosophy and logics about this environmental movement and flow where we live. We don't live among the floor and wall and ceiling. No, we live among the environment. とか、そのなんか一冊本があったんです。
Yes, she said. She doesn't know very well. She doesn't know very well about Bergson. If you have a comment, please tell.
Well, so I mean, somehow you are answering the question that Bergson may not have been studied very much in the topic of mobility, maybe. So this maybe so. If some of you here have some knowledge about it, I would be glad to take your literature or whatever. But that might be a field interesting to explore, the philosophy of Bergson, which is very much at the center of mobility and the absence of perception of time and all that.
So please introduce me a best book of Bergson.
I will try. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So maybe this time. So please approach Professor Han. Thank you very much.